Oh 07, my friends. I hope you're having a great day. First of all, I want to say thank you. We have over 500 people on the channel. It means a lot. I actually never thought that somebody will actually listen. It's so mind blowing for me. I've been writing stories, little stories, all my life about wizards and now about space and Star Citizen just because I enjoy the game a lot. I think it has such a great potential. But the game is not finished yet, and sometimes I go to work and I daydream about some cool premises and ideas what could have happened, 1,000 years in the future. So anyway, this story happens in 2950s in Star Citizen universe, and the story is about a pilot and a helper, two crew of the ship. They go into all restricted system. They're scavengers, and they are looking at old battlefields, old battlegrounds. I don't want to spoil it too much. They're gonna find something cool, and they're going to end up, escaping the planet. And again, I don't want to say too many things to start with. Anyway, I appreciate you all. Please leave a like. It means a lot. And give me feedback. I know the voice is not perfect yet. I'm working on it. I got the good mic. I got a bunch of different apps, and I'm trying to figure out editing and things like that. Um, Other than that, you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Humanity was buried in its own brutality once again, waiting for the universe itself to swallow the last remains of the tragic Devarian War. Kabal's system had been under UEE guard for centuries, sealed off from the public. We had to fly through secret, well-established routes, careful to avoid the rare military patrol. I was piloting my old Aegis Vulcan, outfitted for long, off-grid salvage operations. Drones, repair units, fabricators, extra fuel tanks, all packed in. War memorabilia was still a hot commodity on the black market. Old cheap components, forgotten weapons, you never knew what kind of treasure might be hidden in those silent battlegrounds. It had been long 3 weeks in a distant system. Now we were orbiting Kabal II, sending pins and scanning the surface without turning up anything substantial. The planet was a desert, red sand dunes and scattered mountain ridges that danced to the rhythm of the high winds. Finding anything here was a gamble. Supplies were running low. "Hey Thomas, we should start heading back within a week." "Yes, Captain," he replied quickly. Thomas was in his early 20s. I always preferred hiring a younger crew, someone eager to learn and hungry for a good payout. His duties included handling the heavier equipment and assisting with light engineering tasks. In a way, getting on board with an experienced captain for a risky salvage run like this was a privilege, especially when it wasn't exactly legal. Thomas was quiet, focused and sharp. This was already our 6th run together, and I trusted him around the ship. He even had a chance to fly and dock her at the space station. He felt natural in the cockpit. I didn't want to return empty-handed, but the time was running out. We were flying low and fast, manually weaving through the terrain. The Vulcan banked left and right, skimming just 500 meters above the ground. I sent pins, monitored surface temperatures, and kept an eye on our hydrogen fuel levels. The light was dropping fast. Keeping my focus was getting harder by the minute. The ship's radar picked up a faint signature again. Something was out there. I marked the sector for triangulation, but that would have to wait until the morning. We needed rest. I switched to VTOL mode and descended into the wide canyon surrounded by an endless chain of mountains. One more pin before landing. Nothing. Engines rumbled, then quieted as they shut down. Silence fell over Kabal. I stood from the pilot's chair and made my way towards the living quarters. The Vulcan was holding together, worn down, with exposed wiring and pipes sticking out of open maintenance panels. It was long overdue for a full overhaul. I did a quick inventory check. Almost out of vegetables, I boiled some water and started a simple pasta with canned tomato sauce. I couldn't stop thinking about reaching the station and ordering a cold pint and a burger. My beer stash was almost gone. I wasn't an avid drinker, but nothing could beat a cold beer after a long day's work. I sat at the table staring through the window. The sun had nearly vanished, dusk giving way to the black night sky. A blanket of stars and distant nebulas stretching across the void. The loneliness was hitting harder tonight. I missed my family. Still, returning without anything to sell wasn't an option. The cost of fuel and equipment alone was already too high, and all I had found so far was worthless junk, barely enough to cover the trip. I finished my dinner and walked over to the control panel in the engineering bay, hooked up my power armor to top off the battery, then powered down every system on the ship, except for life support, oxygen generation, air and water filtration. With that done, I headed into the captain's room to rest. The night was almost quiet. I woke up once, halfway through the cycle, to the sound of windstorm pelting the hull with pebbles and sand, then drifted back to sleep. By early morning, the radar showed that we had been surrounded by an electrical storm, high in the atmosphere. Lightning danced across the night sky. It cleared just before sunrise. Kabal's night cycle lasted a long 10 Earth hours. We had to place 2 portable scanning stations about 75 kilometers from the Vulcan. Down in the cargo bay, Thomas was already suited up, prepping the MTC. "Good morning, boss. That storm last night was insane. The front of the ship got completely buried in the sand. I sent a couple of drones to clear it out." "You're learning fast, Thomas. Won't be long before you buy your own ship." He laughed, eyes lighting up. "Yeah, a Drake Vulture, not some old second-hand model either. Brand new, fresh off the showroom floor. 2.8 million. I saved half already. Big thanks to you." He smiled wide as he hit the button to lower the ramp. Oxygen rushed out of the cargo bay in a sharp hiss. "All right, Thomas, take it slow. Check your comms and make sure you've got enough oxypens for emergencies." He nodded. Such a good kid, I thought, watching MTC roll down onto the sand and drive off in the morning light. I ran a quick check through the engineering panel, ready to shut down systems once the drones completed their work. We couldn't afford to draw attention out here. I climbed on the Ranger. Systems gave green status as power surged. I twisted the throttle and drifted forward. Sand spraying from rear wheels as I sped toward our preset destination. The route took me through a narrow canyon before opening into the vast valley. Temperature climbed quickly, reaching 120 C. Thankfully, the flight suit and armor combo kept conditions manageable. 4 hours in, the ship was in sight. Mobile scanners were already positioned atop a ridge 75 kilometers out. Thomas arrived a half an hour later. We loaded the vehicles and settled into the cockpit. "Good luck, Captain." I nodded. "We'll have to dig up whatever's buried in this sector. Let's hope last night's storm didn't cover up the pin completely." I launched the ship's scanner and linked to the portable stations. 5 minutes later, a notification popped up. "Linked established." The scan began. I headed to the engineering bay to work on one of the drones. Its thruster module had burned out during the last dig. This sandy world was brutal on the equipment. I placed the drone onto the workbench and switched on the overhead lamp. First step, power down. I unlatched the back panel, removed the high-capacity battery, and set it aside. The drone was an outdated unit, Talos 17, standard issue for this old ship. But with a bit of engineering magic, we kept each other running. I fixed the drones patched up the Vulcan, and the Vulcan took care of us. Circle of life on a salvage ship. That thought made me smile. I connected the new thruster module, then pulled a fresh battery from storage and slid it into the place. Then I did full software reset and calibration. "Captain, signal!" Thomas' urgent voice echoed through the corridors. I stood up fast and rushed to the cockpit. "It's solid, 63 kilometers out," he said, eyes wide with excitement. "Settle down," I muttered, though my heart was already racing. "It's something big," he added more calmly, locking eyes with me. I nodded and dropped into the co-pilot seat. "What are you looking at? You're flying. I'll handle the scans." Thomas jumped up, practically glowing. It would be his first time flying the Vulcan in atmosphere. A quarter of the ship's capacitor was diverted to the scanner module. I prepped the system for a deep ground scan and focused it on the new signal. The Vulcan's engine howled to life, coughing out fireballs followed by a plume of dark smoke. "Keep her low," I told the rookie pilot. The old lady surged forward, skimming the Kabal's landscape at 110 meters per second. I had 10 minutes to prep. No signatures yet, but the scan was narrowing. I headed back to the engineering, plugged in all available drones and checked my armor, 82% charge. Outside, I could already hear the VTOLs shifting into the landing configuration. We stood in front of the towering sand dune, the Vulcan resting quietly behind us. "Right here, Captain," Thomas called out, down on his knees at the base of the dune, digging with his bare hands. My heart was pounding. I lost control for a moment and rushed to help. My suit showed low radiation levels, nothing dangerous. I took another swing at the sand and felt my glove strike something hard. We froze. A metal panel emerged from the dust. Worn but unmistakable. Stamped into the surface were the letters RSI-EX312. We looked at each other, eyes wide. "EX? X? That's for experimental," I mumbled. Thomas glanced at his portable computer and exhaled sharply. "Oh great heavens, it can't be, it cannot be. That's a military, 3 decades, sub-capital, but number? Only 3 digits?" Only a small section of the vessel's hull was exposed. The rest remained buried beneath centuries of sand. We headed back to Vulcan. We needed a plan. Inside the ship, Thomas was already scrolling through the old UEE military archives. "Captain, RSI-EX312 shows as a military sub-capital gunboat. Perseus." "But that's impossible. The battle happened 500 years ago, and Perseus models are still in production today." He was right. The RSI Perseus was still sold to high-ranking military organizations. If you had a small fortune, starting around 280 million credits, and the patience for RSI's decade-long waitlist, you might get one. They only rolled out about 6 per year. It was the crown jewel of any space fleet, 100 meters long, 2 decks, and 4 massive size 8 cannons. "Thomas, the modern-day Perseus is based on a design from early 2500s. They fought in a Tavarian war, and none have been recovered since the gold rush in Kabal started." The ship's deep scan module chimed, the scan complete. I looked down at the readout and exhaled in awe. It's her. It's really her. The entire ship is just buried under that thick layer of sand. Pure luck. Yesterday's storm must have shifted the dune enough to expose part of her. "What do we do?" Thomas asked, eyes wide with disbelief. "We dig her out and take what we can. We're going to be rich." We had to move fast. Once her body was exposed, her signature would be nearly impossible to hide. First, we need eyes in the sky. I thought activating the Skyark SP-7. SP stood for Stratospheric Probe, a compact solar-powered reconnaissance satellite designed for short-term deployment in low orbit or the upper stratosphere. Efficient and autonomous. Ship's roof slid open, revealing the drone bay. With a mechanical hiss, the Skyark launched, shooting 20 meters into the air before stabilizing and igniting its thrusters. While it climbed, Thomas prepared our salvage gear, charging backpacks, checking cutting tools and tractor beams. We cleared the cargo hold, making room for old military components. Energy aboard the Vulcan was tense, but cheerful at the same time. We were racing the clock with barely enough supplies left to last 6 more days. If we were not heading back by then, we would be in big trouble. I pulled up all RSI schematics and programmed the drones to begin excavation. If everything went smoothly, we would reach the airlock by the morning, and within 3 days the drones would fully uncover the Perseus, revealing her to the stars after half a millennium. One by one, drones detached from the bay and began their work, blasting sand with micro thrusters and breaking apart rocks with precision lasers. Every few hours, they returned to recharge. I divided them in 2 rotating teams of 3, ensuring constant progress. Kabal star deep behind the distant mountain chain. It was time to rest. I pulled out a bottle of aged rum and poured 2 double shots. To the treasure. To the Perseus. The warmth of spiced caramel filled my chest. An hour before sunrise, I lay in bed, eyes wide open, listening to Thomas shuffle boxes in the cargo bay. The anticipation was too much. I jumped up, took a contrast shower, and suited up. A quick check of the engineering panel confirmed the progress. Perseus' starboard side had emerged, tips of her massive guns peeking through the sand. She rested flat on her belly, still mostly buried but undeniably majestic. We lowered the ramp and approached RSI-EX312. Drones zipped overhead, one squad returning to charge, while the next one took over. The airlock had been revealed, and the drones were now working top to bottom, gradually peeling back 500 years of dirt and sand. We've reached the airlock. I connected my computer to the access port. Dead, as I expected. I crouched down, slid the metal panel aside near my feet, revealing a manual override port. The captain of a Perseus always carried a small titanium key. RSI engineers could unlock it using the ship's serial number. Thankfully, I had old logs and schematics. I located the code on the rear panel and transmitted the details back to the Vulcan. Thomas, check the fabricator. I need a small titanium override key. He leapt off the ledge and ran. While I waited, I allowed myself a moment to admire her. What happened to her crew? The thought gave me chills. I imagined their final descent, heroic, maybe even terrifying, falling toward an empty world. "I've got it," Thomas called, scrambling back up and handed me the key. I knelt and slid it into the place. A loud click echoed as the airlock unlocked. Deep inside the mechanism, emergency canister of compressed gas hissed, triggering the release system. I thought we'd have to cut our way in. If this system was still operational, what else inside might be? We stepped into the hallway. Flashlights cut into the darkness. I instinctively touched the handgun on my hip, just making sure it was still there. Ancient dust floated up around us, particles sparkling in the beams of light. "This is engineering," I said. "And the gun control." I looked down and froze. One of the crew, or what was left of him. The body lay next to an open fuse box, bones draped in a charred dark blue uniform. He tried to keep flying till the very end. Scorch marks ran along the walls, signs of fire. We turned the corner and saw it. A gaping hole in the floor panel and destroyed power core casing. Direct hit. Right into the heart of the beast. "Crazy luck," Thomas whispered. The scene started to make sense. Back in the day, ships of this size had no shielding. Military design relied solely on armor. The Tavarian destroyer used high penetration shells. Perseus had a weak spot near the landing gear, I said. They must have hit it. Was that ever fixed later? He asked. In a way. The armor got thicker, and nowadays military-grade shields were added. I took a slow look around. Aside from a direct hit, everything else was shockingly intact. The next door led us into the cargo bay. Around 40 sealed crates stacked in neat rows. Later, I said, cutting off Thomas as he approached. First we checked the ship. We climbed the ladder to the second floor. The space was wrecked. Furniture and personal items scattered everywhere. Glass shattered, a pool table snapped in half. This was a hell of an impact, I said. Why didn't they use the escape pod? Thomas asked. Who knows, I replied. A ship like this would have carried 5 or 6 crew, veteran soldiers, all of them. Maybe they didn't want to leave her behind, or maybe they just couldn't. The engineer downstairs wasn't wearing a helmet. Back then, Perseus-class ships were seen as indestructible. Maybe they never imagined losing her. A loud noise startled us. Damn drones, I muttered. A chunk of sand had slid off the upper hull, slamming against the ship. I found another crew member, Thomas called out. The gunner was still seated at his station, hands gripping the controls, his empty skull faced forward staring into the void. In the flight deck we found 3 more, one of them the captain. There was only one right thing to do. We buried them all on the quiet reach in the canyon nearby. Back aboard the Vulcan, our suits were recharging as we grabbed a quick bite. What's next? Thomas asked between mouthfuls. We've got medium power plant with us. Think it's enough to wake her up? Medium unit should be plenty, I said. We've got hydrogen and quantanium fuel. But flying her after 500 years without rebuilding the engines? That's a suicide. Still, I couldn't deny it. I was stunned by how well preserved she was. The heavy red sands of Kabal had turned the Perseus into a time capsule. By tomorrow, the drones would finish uncovering the top of the ship, revealing 2 top engines. Then, we would know if flight was even an option. Let's get to work, I said, standing up. We spent the rest of the day replacing fuses. One of the fuel tanks had ruptured in the crash. I disconnected it from the fuel system and carefully swapped out the main line. Deep down, I wanted to try starting her up. I knew it was foolish, of course. Not something I would admit out loud, but Thomas was sharp. He knew what I was thinking. We worked in silence, fully focused, not even noticing when darkness crept over the valley. Eventually, it was time to stop. 2 hours before sunrise, an alarm blared through the Vulcan. I jumped up and sprinted to the control panel. What's happening? Thomas arrived a minute later, breathless. UE patrol, high orbit, just exited Quantum on the far side of the planet. His face went pale. We need to move. Sooner or later they'll be sweeping through the sector. Perseus' top side was already exposed. There was no hiding it now. The Vulcan system would alert us once the patrol came closer, but by then we would have minutes of that. And with the Hammerhead and the Scorpius, we had no chance. Orders were shoot on sight. Gear up. Bring a new battery in the power plant. We've only got 1 new battery, Thomas replied. Small size. They'll do it. Throw it on a quick charge and get ready. An hour later, we were in Perseus' engineering section. I connected the battery, then rushed into the cockpit. Thomas, bring the Vulcan in closer. Give us 10% of hydrogen and just a tiny amount of quantanium. Save the rest. I need to test the fuel system first. He nodded and ran. I dropped into the pilot's seat and glanced down at the console. Red indicator blinked next to the main display. We've got power. I flipped the switch. The MFDs flickered, cycled twice, then locked into a stable readout. First, status check. 3 out of 4 main engines responded. No surprise, the 4th was buried beneath the ship. the side that had taken the brunt of the crash. The engine was gone. I disconnected the power supply feeding it. To my surprise, the ship's components acknowledged the command and displayed the engine unplugged. What else have you got working? Scanners, navigation, and automated turret system all green. Weapon status, top turret damaged, but the bottom gun was still operational, safely tucked away in the belly. I smiled. One working main gun was more than I expected. Thomas appeared at the cockpit hatch, out of breath. We've got a problem. Fuel ports are on the bottom. Drones haven't cleared that section yet. Give me a minute. I sprinted outside. The Vulcan was parked just beside the Perseus. Then I saw her. Really saw her for the first time. The sun was rising, light reflecting off the weathered silver hull. 100-meter beast, scarred but still proud. Towering engines, twin turrets. She looked like a relic of Earth's naval fleet from 20th century, resurrected and stranded among red sands and silence. Battery reserves were running low. Every 10 minutes I checked the UE patrol's position. They were moving closer, sweeping sector by sector. The drones worked fast. In under an hour, they had the fuel ports cleared. Then they turned their focus to hull integrity and clearing sand from the engines. The onboard system were beginning to respond. Most maneuvering thrusters gave green signals, but nothing could be thrusted until the power plant was connected. Thomas walked into engineering bay just as I was bolting it in place. "You won't believe it," he said. "Boxes full of leucinite, and some weird artifacts I've never seen ever before." He held up a tablet. Over $4 million in profit, just for the leucinite. I smiled, still focused on the work. Using the fabricator, I built a support brace and drilled it into the ship's inner struts. Normally, a power plant would need its own chamber, temperature regulations, surge dampening, full containment. But this was a pad job. I didn't plan for anyone to see it. Fuel line in, power cables out, direct to the main distributor. Luckily, the engineering bay had its own shielding and temp control. Then, alarm rang. I glanced down at my screen. They are turning this way. We've got 30 minutes before they spot us. I pinned all drones, ordered them back to Vulcan. "Thomas," I said, "refuel the Perseus, use everything from the spare tanks. Then, move the Vulcan behind the ridge. Go full stealth and deactivate all non-essential systems. Wait for me and UE to pass, then fly away. You know the way. Use the same beacons we took here." He stared at me, not fully processing. I stepped closer and put a hand on his shoulder. "You are a good kid. I'm going to try to jump the Perseus to the nearest system. After that, I'll make for Stanton, my mechanic's lab. He might be able to put this baby back together properly." I took a breath. "I'm not risking your life for this. If I don't make it, the Vulcan is yours. The ship deed is in the captain's quarters in the safe. Password 54895. His eyes widened. "Repeat it. 54895. Don't fly now. If they see you, they'll shoot you down. Hurry. Send all the fuel and get clear." Thomas nodded, stepped back, and shook my hand firmly. 54895. Thank you, Captain. Ten minutes later, I heard the Vulcan's engine rumble through the Perseus. The hull shook gently and my heart sank. She had been my home for over a decade. I felt it. In that moment, it was a goodbye. Why had I risked everything on a military gunboat from 2520? Why bet my life on the ship? A wave of loneliness and regret hit me hard. I forced it away. "Get a grip." I looked over the status panel. Cockpit and living quarters airtight. Engineering was showing yellow, some damaged but not critical. I flipped the fuel switch and the pumps sent hydrogen into the power plant. One by one, the flight panels lit up. The system started charging the battery. The gravity generator cycled green. Life support followed, also green. Within a minute, the cockpit began filling with oxygen. Then, the quantum drive flashed red. Then countdown, 56 minutes. Old tech. I have forgotten how long it took to cycle. It's inevitable now. I won't be able to run for 56 minutes. There's no way back. I checked the computer. UE patrol, just minutes from surface scan range. Vulcan no longer registered. The kit was safe. I sent a final signal to the probe. Skyark SP-7 folded its solar panels, fired the thrusters and began its descent into the atmosphere. Its last descent. The suit read stable oxygen and ambient temperature 20 C. Engineering was hotter, closer to 30 C. From the power plant running it at full output. I kept it at 80%, stress testing the system. Power levels showed we had enough juice to run 3 engines without strain. Warning pin, approaching signal. I rushed back to the cockpit. Even outdated, these old military scanners were incredible. Detecting Hammerhead's engine signatures from kilometers away. That also meant the second we lit up, they'd see us too. I strapped in. Good luck, old man. I switched the toggles on the left side panel, prepping the engines. Then, comms ripped open and a sudden voice. Loud and urgent. Open up, Captain! I glanced at the radar. A Ranger sat parked next to the Perseus, tiny against her bulk. Next to it stood a not so tiny human. Courage burning brighter than sense. Open up, I'll help. I opened the airlock. Use the tractor beam. Pull the Ranger inside. I don't want any extra signals. Minutes later, Thomas dropped into the co-pilot seat beside me. What do you want me to do? Strap in. Prepare for battle. We need to survive 42 minutes before we can jump. We both knew it was impossible. But somehow, this brave kid gave me a spark of belief. Maybe, just maybe. I hit 3 switches. The Perseus roared to life, shaking violently. The 2 top engines threw flames. The bottom left one struggled, throwing out sand but still giving 20% thrust. After 500 years in the conservation, Robert Space Industries can build good ships. VTOLs and maneuvering thrusters came online. Metal panels slid aside, revealing embedded jets all over the ship's frame. I gripped the stick and lifted. An avalanche of sand exploded outwards from beneath the military Goliath. UE patrol instantly altered the course. I slammed the afterburners, trying to bury our launch site, knowing it didn't really matter anymore. Perseus RSI-EX312. She raised her nose and began to ascend, rising out of the red sands of the Kabal II. Inbound in 4 minutes, system warned. We had to break free from the planet's gravity well before then. I pushed the engines harder. The third one finally cleared, roared into life, giving us full power. She was slow in a straight line, but nimble, responsive to turn. Check the PDCs, I called. 2 out of 4 operational, Thomas replied. Want me in the turret? Not the top one, it's cooked. Go to the bottom, it's by the torpedo section. Keep your flight suit sealed. A minute later, Thomas' voice crackled through the ship's comms. I'm in position. Let's test it. Huge metal blast shield retracted, revealing the turret. Twin-size 8 cannons gleaming beneath the hull. We needed to fire a few rounds just to see if they still worked. Massive cannon rumbled, sending a shockwave through the Perseus. Captain, that was awesome, Thomas shouted with joy. Keep it cool, I replied. Turret showing 4 nuclear ordnance on board. I closed my eyes. Those had been outlawed for centuries. I couldn't believe the ship was carrying them. EX? Now I understood why. What the experimental designation truly meant. It takes 600 seconds to charge and activate them, Thomas added. Do it. Then hide the turret. It'll be our surprise, our last resort. The blast door slid closed, concealing the monstrous weapon. The nuclear rounds began charging. Power surged, systems strained. Heat level rose. The ship signature was now off the charts. Minutes later, the Hammerhead and Scorpius appeared, 20 kilometers out. Communications were silent. They didn't know what to make of us. No one dared fire on Perseus from 2955, but one from 2520? No shields? And yet, our heat and signatures were reading like a small fleet. Orders were shoot on sight, but the sheer presence of a military gunboat brought us hesitation. Who are you? State your business. Hammerhead began scanning us. We are Crusaders' military gunboat, I lied. Took a detour for emergency repairs. Their channel stayed open. Confusion buzzed through the silence. Captain, it's EX312. The vessel was commissioned 5 centuries ago. The system's power level stabilized. Charges completed. A short window opened to act. Thomas, load the left gun with a nuclear round. Right gun, high penetration explosive. Yes, Captain. I switched to open comms. Okay, boys. I see you're aiming your guns at us, and we don't like that. I suggest you let us finish our business and move on. A moment passed. Then a reply. This is a restricted system. Shut down your engines and prepare for boarding, or we will blast you into space dust. That's an order. You know it's not going to happen, I said calmly. At that moment, the Scorpions fired 3 torpedoes. I activated the point defense cannons. 2 were operational. They intercepted 2 torpedoes. The third slammed into the front port side. No real damage. The heavy military armor took the hit like a champ. The ship shook, alive again. After all these years it was going what it was born to do. I tried the torpedo launcher. Red status. The bay was too damaged. Maybe it was for the best to have a risk of self-detonation on launch. Then the Hammerhead opened fire. 24 size 4 guns hammered our hull. This is your last chance to leave us alone, I said over comms. Thomas, your time to shine. Fire the left gun. Aim for the Hammerhead's port side. Then 4 seconds later, fire the right gun. Center mass. Turret extended once more. The left gun blasted, launched a charged nuclear shell. It streaked, covered the distance, until its proximity sensor activated the pin, which pushed into the chamber. Drums played, and fission and fusion dance began. Humanity's most terrifying invention lit up the universe, swallowing us all with a light. The Hammerhead's shield absorbed the initial blast, barely. System overloaded, lights went dark. Their power grid dropped, resetting. 4 seconds later, the second shell slammed into the central mass, punching through the armor and exploding inside, shredding critical components. Still caught in Kabal II gravity well, the dying Hammerhead began to fall. Yes, we did it, Thomas shouted somewhere behind me. But I was staring ahead, straight at RSI's best heavy fighter, the Scorpius. It was just beyond the cockpit, its shields were flaring under our PDC fire. With no shields of our own, I pulled hard on the stick, raising the nose, swinging to the right. We clipped the Scorpius with the side of the Perseus. Too late. The fighter dump-fired the rest of its missiles. One hit cockpit, left quarter panel, explosion rocked us. The sound vanished, replaced by silence. The cockpit depressurized. Air escaped in a blink, then thud. The blast shield dropped, and emergency system restored the atmosphere. Warm liquid trickled down my leg. Drops hit the floor. A jagged shard of glass was lodged into my chest. I unbuckled the seat and collapsed to the floor, feeling my blood pressure crash. Across the room I saw my backpack, but I couldn't stand. I crawled, dragging a thick red trail behind me. My heart was racing, pushing blood with every pump. My vision darkened as I saw the cockpit door slid open. Thomas rushed in and jabbed me with a mad pen. The bleeding stopped, the pain dulled, but the shard of glass was still lodged into my chest. Breathing felt like fire. Probably cracked ribs. Ironically, might have saved my life. "We're okay," he said, kneeling beside me. "The Scorpius is done. You cracked it in half with the hull of Perseus." He paused, then added, "We've got to get to the Vulcan. There's a portable medical unit on board. Captain, can you land her?" I lifted my head, winked, and gave a half a smile. "I don't see why not." We had to move quickly. The UE fleet would be arriving soon. Standing outside between our two ships, we looked at each other. "You saved my life," I said quietly. "Thank you." "You saved mine," he replied. "Keep the Vulcan. You can sell her, buy yourself 3 vultures. Even bent up, my salvage ship would still fetch around 9 million credits." Thomas stood speechless. His dream owning his own ship had just come true. "Oh no, Captain, I'm going to fix her. Make something real for my family. I will never forget you." "Start with legal contracts," I said with a grin, shaking a young man's hand. I stood there a moment longer, watching the Vulcan rise through the thin red sky, her hull glowing faintly in the upper light. A sharp crack echoed as it vanished into the quantum. Gone, but not lost. My chest still ached, but I smiled. I climbed aboard the Perseus, RSI-EX312. Its systems gave green, heavy like an ancient beast waking up from centuries of silence. Stars waited, and me, with a gunboat older than empires, heading into the unknown.